Hi there, this is Ronnie coming at you with not only a video, but a requested video. Yes, even I get video requests. Daryl Dosset, apologies if I haven't pronounced that correctly, I do apologise if I haven't. Commented on one of my earlier videos about Castle Falkenstein and asked would I do a video about the themes and different ways you can use Castle Falkenstein, kind of genres you can use within it. So yeah, as my sort of main guide, I'm going to be using Comme il faut, which is the player's guide for Castle Falkenstein, and has a different way of doing task resolution and combat, which speeds things up enormously, which is why I use it. For those who have never played Castle Falkenstein, have never watched any of my videos previously, Castle Falkenstein is a high fantasy steampunk setting set in an alternate reality, alternate version of our world, Victorian era. How do I run games in Castle Falkenstein? Well, I run them essentially as high intrigue swashbucklers with the high fantasy and steampunk elements pushed very much to the front. I like the swashbuckling aspect. I like I've always had a fondness for sort of mysteries and so on, so I like to have, in essence, the players invariably get caught up in trying to identify and then stop some nefarious scheme or other, which may start very sort of subtly and innocuously and sort of build to, could be something that could have catastrophic global consequences. And I like that. I like to, for me it has to be big. It's kind of James Bond meets The Three Musketeers meets Mission Impossible with high fantasy, meets Middle Earth and Jules Verne steampunk. I mean, it's a fairly heady mix. Now, you can, with Falkenstein, take any one of those aspects. I mean, that's a right good hodgepodge that I do. You can take any one of those aspects and just deal with each of them individually. You can deal with, and I'm looking at the book now, you can deal with military themes and just really just concentrate on the military, being a soldier, sharp with steampunk. Not entirely beyond the realms of possibility. Or I suppose Flashman would count as well. Apologies, book getting on the way. Mystery, again, you can really sort of, you can emphasize the mystery aspect of a game, and this is the time of Sherlock Holmes, so you can have a good old-fashioned mystery. It doesn't have to be a murder, it could be a robbery, it could be any sort of intriguing crime sort of puzzle for the players to solve. Science fiction, remember, this is the era of At the Earth's Core. This is the era of John Carter from Mars. This is the era of the original H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, and indeed Steam Age which is the supplement with all the lots of examples of steampunk tech, has the stats for the Martian walkers. If you really want to do, you know, War of the Worlds Part 2, you know, the Martians are back and they're pissed, and they've got a cure for the cold. So you could do that. I mean, you know, you can fly in steam powered rocket ships, you know, and fly to the moon and have insane adventures on the moon with strange creatures on there. No problem at all. Romance, yes. There are, you could easily pull it all back. Emphasize, you know, that I once joked in a previous video about there not being a Mills and Boon game, but I've always believed that if you're prepared to talk about violence and death in a role-playing game, you should be also able to talk about love and sex. You know, if you're talking about people losing their life and the reasons why people lose their life, you should be willing to talk about people finding joy in life and the creation of life. So yeah, there's that. Secret Agent, you can go all in, you can go Bond, full on. Mission Impossible, as I say, you could do a steampunk version of Mission Impossible, a steampunk version of Bond. The one that tends to come to mind for me is a film from the 1960s, which so needs a remake, called The Assassination Bureau, with Oliver Reed and Diana Rigg and Telly Savalas, which is a wonderfully kind of silly, over the top yarn, but it's so much fun, and it's one of those that could really, if you could get someone really charming in the lead, that'd be a hell of a good film for a remake. It's dying for it. This is also the time when gothic horror really came into its own. I don't really touch on horror much in my games, but everything is there in Castle Falkenstein that you could easily run. I mean, you know, this is the time of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, Bram Stoker's Dracula. In fact, I do have a stats for Dracula, for Falkenstein. They are there. You can easily run. The most recent and obvious example was the television series Penny Dreadful, which was a wonderful show. I was sad to see that it finished after 3 seasons, although they did. It was arced, so it finished. It didn't. The writers finished it after 3 seasons. They didn't. It wasn't cut off before its prime. Although, quite frankly, you could have went on and told many other stories featuring other characters from the show, but you could easily do Penny Dreadful very, very simply. You can add the supernatural. The magic system is there for Castle Falkenstein, so you can have all kinds of mystical and magical sort of things going on. It's just you can take away all the sort of swashbuckle and just do a really dark, oppressive kind of horror game so easily. And the thing about it is, I can run Falkenstein as light sort of, you know, James Bond, Mission Impossible, high fantasy, steampunky, swashbuckly goodness, and someone could run a game that is very dark, horror, or sort of fairy themes, which is coming up. You could do you could easily do a game more akin to the sort of darker end of fairy tales, as that sort of Brothers Grimm and all that, and it would fit, it would work, it would be part of, they would both be equally valid within that world. It's just, you know, I'm a GM, I'm looking at one part of the overall structure of Falkenstein. You know, someone else might sort of hint in on another, and I think that's why I like the system so much. It's just, there's so much potential within it. And, you know, fairy tale, and when I say fairy tale, again, you could do something along the lines of the Brothers Grimm and keep it really, really dark, and, you know, tinge on pushing it into horror. Or you can keep it light and airy fairy, and, you know, do a very sort of light and positive, and which is, I tend to verge on that side, mostly because my favorite fairy tale in terms of a movie, my favorite fairy tale by some distance is The Princess Bride, and that just works for me every way. It's just, it's almost a perfect movie, and it is an influence with Falkenstein for me. It really is. It's a phenomenal film and a great influence. So there's so much potential with Falkenstein, that you can run highly militaristic, you can do mysteries, you can do a secret agent, you know, dealing with nefarious schemes, and, you know, having to deal with sort of diplomacy and stopping two nations from going to war. You can do a murder mystery, you can do something sort of magical and mystical, and you can add and subtract the high fantasy. There is a society whose name I've not got on my tongue at the moment. There is one of the sorceress orders that specifically deal with investigating crimes with a mystical aspect to them. And they, you know, just that alone allows you to deal with magic, allows you to deal with murder and mystery and intrigue. It's just, there's just so much potential in the background and in the system that you can do different styles, different genres, different feels and flavors of game with Falkenstein without any of them feeling like they're sort of trying to, you know, you're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. They'll all fit perfectly. So yeah, as I say, I like to keep it light and fast, and, you know, Mission Impossible, Bond, you know, Three Musketeers and all that. But I've seen other people do, you know, other people talk about different ways they deal with things. You can add and subtract and push more forward and push more back as you feel fit. It's a great system. There's so much potential in it. I'm glad that you could get it print on demand again. I would love to see them get the other books print on demand as well, because I think it deserves it. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you are a Falkenstein player, I hope you enjoyed it. If you're not a Falkenstein player, go buy it. It's good. And I will be back soon with another video. Thank you very much.